Well, it was really amazing. We landed in Milan and immediately raced to our first screening of An Inconvenient Study. And there at the theater, we were able to meet with some of the local scientists, doctors, and journalists that found themselves in that epicenter dealing with the COVID outbreak. And it was a very enlightening experience, I have to say, for me and my camera crew. We were all mind blown at what we're hearing, what we're seeing. The first interview I want to bring your attention to is the first interview I ended up doing with Alberto Contri. He's a former president of Pubblicità Progresso and former RAI board member, RAI being one of the biggest media companies in Italy. This was a media man. He said his expertise was actually media, advertising, and pharmaceutical. So he was well aware of science and where media collide, had tons of friends and political people that he knew when all this was going on, and he really had a perspective that actually blew my mind. My guest is Professor Alberto Contri. He's a professor of communications, has held high-level institutional roles such as former president of Pubblicità Progresso, an Italian nonprofit organization that promotes social advertising. He was on the board of RAI Television, which is the largest public broadcasting news agency in Italy, and got deeply involved in discussions about propaganda throughout COVID. Alberto, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
The vaccine took 1 year, really, in the pandemic. Here, we were under the impression that many, many people were dying in Italy, that it was higher death rates than we had ever seen. Were there higher death rates since you knew doctors and you knew experts, did they think they were seeing a real pandemic, or is it just being heightened by media exaggeration?
You spoke about fear. Per esempio, c'è stato un evento clamoroso.
Italy launched this massive fear campaign. We all especially remember on TV there was this small city of Bergamo, where we saw these big military trucks, which told us they were carrying lots of coffins, each of them, whilst in reality it was one coffin per truck.
You can imagine looking in TV 30 truck.
This was the biggest fear propaganda they did.
Il secondo elemento molto grave che stanno
And the second element is that all elderly people who were entering a hospital and they were maybe affected by other pathologies which were not COVID, were immediately declared COVID. So why? Because the government was giving money, a refund to the hospital, which was 5 times higher for COVID patients than normal patients. That's why even if they had 3, 4 pathologies, they wrote that down.
It's a corruption.
The same thing happened in America. This is the first time I've heard that it happened in other countries. We were paying 5 times for COVID over flu. Flu, maybe $100, COVID, $900. Also putting people on ventilators, more money. Putting people on remdesivir, more money. Yes. And then when they died, more money. So our question was, were we manufacturing death through our hospital systems? How do you explain doctors going along with that decision? Was it just money? Were doctors getting paid to up the bill, or were they forced?
Both.
Yeah.
I medici in parte.
Partly it was due for money, because basically every doctor was receiving 80 euros from the government per injection. So every doctor, who generally makes 3,000 to 4,000 per month, was making 20,000. So a big difference. Other doctors were convinced, because we have these so-called viral stars, these virologists on TV, who were paid by pharmaceutical companies to make a massive propaganda, so much so that the population split in 2. Well, let's say not exactly 2, because 80% of the population was totally in favor and believed in science, and 20% was against, but had no possibility of speaking, because they were crushed down and marginalized and suspended for refusing. Now there are a lot of legal actions ongoing by doctors who were suspended.
Quando partecipavo ai talk show,
During a talk show, I asked a question to Dr. Bassetti, who was from the University of Genoa, who was the biggest promoter of vaccines in Italy at that time. And I asked him, is it true that you have 14 ongoing contracts with pharmaceutical companies? And Bassetti just removed his earphones and left.
No, Mattei, no, vabbè.
Wow.
So I became very famous because of that.